Well, good morning. I'm Bob Lowe. I'm the president of the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, and this morning I have with me the conservative ag critic, John Barlow, who happens to be a pretty good friend and is the MP from my, I guess your constituency, my constituency.
Yeah.
I guess we're here to kind of see what the Conservative Party's platform is concerning the beef industry. And so we've got some questions, and because my memory's bad, I'm going to have to read them. So just what are your party's priorities for this session?
Well, I think first off, there is some concern with some of the ministerial appointments that the Prime Minister has made. We're well aware of Minister Guilbeault in agriculture, but I think our bigger concern is Stephen Guilbeault in environment. We certainly have seen his bent on his approach to energy, but I think we can't overlook his previous comments on agriculture as well. There's certainly going to be some policy that's going to be detrimental to agriculture. We've already seen that with the emissions reduction targets, which could impact fertilizer use. So I think a big focus for us is going to be educating, reaching out to our colleagues across the floor, ensuring that they understand the role that beef producers play in terms of our conservation efforts. I think they are the front line of conservation, and they have to understand that you are as your short film Guardians of the Grassland states, you are the protectors of one of Canada's or the world's most endangered biodiversity, which is the grasslands.
Mm-hmm. When you consider that it is the beef industry maintains somewhere 35 to 40 million, well, I have it right here, approximately 50 million acres of hay and grasslands, native and tame, and so we control that. We need to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. I don't think agriculture is the problem. I think you are part of that solution, and I think where they miss the target is not understanding that. And I think that's a role that we have to play is as I said, educating our colleagues throughout the House of Commons exactly what cattle producers and ranch families have been doing. Mm-hmm. And you've set your own targets when it comes to environment. So I think we should enable you and give you the resources you need to reach those targets on your own. So
that's good news. And I think you said it right. I mean, I think a lot of it is education. It's just lack of knowledge.
Right.
So we'll certainly help you with trying to get that knowledge to where it has to be.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself partnering with us, with Canadian beef producers, be a key partner? I think we kind of answered that question as a solution to climate change.
Yeah, we can't overlook that the beef industry is such an integral part of our economy, for one. So we have to ensure that you remain that. The number of people you employ, the export markets are integral, especially as we rebuild our economy post-pandemic. I think agriculture is one of those sectors that could play a pretty key role. So that's always has to be front of mind, that there is an economic element to this when we talk about climate change. But you're right. I think the basis of that is understanding, or have a better understanding of where agriculture is and the role that you've played in terms of environmental protection, stewardship. You and your members are on the ground every single day, and there's no question that no one cares about their soil, their water, their animals as much as ranch families, and I think you deserve credit for that.
We don't look at the environment. We're in the environment.
Right.
So it affects us right off the bat.
Yeah.
What's your plan to include the beef sector in Canada's recovery, post-pandemic recovery?
Yeah, as I said, I think there are some key roles that agriculture can play. We have to look at industries where we know there's revenue that can be made. And as we go through the pandemic, certainly food security is top of mind for everyone. So there's a role for agriculture to play, that you are going to be something that we lean on. So I am worried that the current Liberal government is sort of punishing agriculture or taking some steps that I don't think put you in the best position to take advantage of that potential. But for the beef sector specifically, I think BRMs are going to be a big part of that. I would encourage the Cattlemen Association to take a look at the recommendations in the BRM study we did at the Agriculture Committee previously. Certainly we want to take a look at the livestock price protection program. We want to make that permanent, national program, inclusive included line of Canada, so that is something that we can rely on. And we could also take a look at the livestock tax deferral program, that it shouldn't be based on region, that there should be more inclusion of the beef producers themselves on making those decisions on when, more similar to the crop side.
Mm-hmm. That all sounds really good, if we can get it.
If we can get it
to happen.
If we can get it to happen, right?
We've said for a while that when you talk BRMs, that there should be things sitting on the shelf, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Set aside's a great example of that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you need it. It's just there, and it can.
Well, that's a good example with the set aside is when the pandemic first came, we were pretty aggressive with the government, asked, what programs are you going to have for agriculture? And I don't think they were aware of the set aside program until ourselves, the Conservatives, the opposition, worked with Canadian Cattlemen's Association to bring that awareness to the minister, and it took some time, but eventually we got it.
We got it, and it took some time, and it would have been nice if it had been faster.
Mm-hmm.
But compared to sometimes, I think the way government works, it happened fairly fast.
Yeah, all things considered.
All things considered.
Yeah.
Considering we had to reinvent the wheel. I mean, we've done it before.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. We should learn some lessons from previous experiences
Exactly.
and have that manual.
Have that manual sitting there.
Exactly.
Not that we want to have to put it in place.
Right.
Every year, so everybody's always familiar. If it doesn't happen for 15 years, that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Half of what we produce in the beef industry is exported.
Yeah.
And that's, I know there's kind of a big movement post-pandemic, or I guess we're still in the pandemic, of local. And local, to me, is global. Global is local.
Yeah.
But what trade and market access opportunities do you see for the sector, and how will your party help address some of the current trade imbalances and challenges we face? And I'll bring CETA as an example right off.
Yeah, good example. Yeah, certainly we're the party of free trade. I'm very proud of the record that Prime Minister Harper had. We went from free trade agreements with about 4 countries to negotiating them with more than 40. 800 million new customers. The Liberals, give them credit, they got CETA and the CPTPP across the finish line, but we negotiated those agreements. But I think there are more opportunities out there. I think there are some great opportunities for the beef sector in Asia, as well as emerging African countries. I think we have some opportunities there to tap into some new markets. But we also have to address, in South Korea would be another one where I think we can review that agreement and lower some of those tariffs to have a better access to South Korea. But I think there are some ones that we need to address. First off would be an agreement with the United Kingdom, whether that's part of bringing them into CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I think would probably be the easiest, maybe the best access, because we've seen that CETA isn't working. We have a massive trade deficit when it comes to our beef trade with the CETA and EU, especially on the Irish side. Their increase has been like 700% over the last 40 years. So an unacceptable trade imbalance with CETA, and that has to be addressed. So I would prefer not to have a UK free trade agreement as Brexit as part of that is similar to CETA. I don't want to use that template. I would rather them become a member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or negotiate a separate deal more along that line. That I think that would be more benefit. Good.
When you consider the trade adds approximately $600 to a carcass, it's pretty vital to us.
For sure. And we've certainly seen some issues with the United States. We're supposed to be our #1 trading partner. The relationship isn't exactly the best right now, and I think our current government has to take some big part of that responsibility with softwood lumber, now PEI potatoes. We want to ensure that relationship is also strong.
Sure. And I know I just got back from Nebraska, where we all agreed that we're one industry in North America. The beef industry is one industry, so we need the governments to be aware of that.
Right.
And I guess we got into that a little bit. What are your priorities for the next policy framework?
Well, I think #1 is we need to ensure that our stakeholders, including the CCA, are engaged in that process, ensuring that they are consulted, active member of what that framework is going to look like in terms of the discussions with the various levels of government. But again, I think we take a look at the livestock insurance price protection program. I think that's something that would have helped during COVID for sure. But again, the government can say, well, it's not a national program, so we don't want to go that direction. So let's make that a national program. Let's include Atlantic Canada. let's ensure that there is some way to control the premiums so that producers are able to access that. We've certainly seen it's not as accessible when premiums, instead of being $20 a head, are $70, $75 a head. Doesn't make it accessible. Let's take a look at the tax deferral program. Make it more in line with what the crop producers have. So rather than someone in Ottawa saying, you know, if you are east of Highway 2 in southern Alberta, you can access it, but if you're on the other side of the highway, you can't. Well, droughts don't exactly go by county or highway lines.
Yeah.
I would rather that you on the ground can access that whenever you think you need it, just like, you know, grain producers do. And there's an element in CRA that we have to get this through finance, that they see that you know, the government's going to get its money back eventually, but it helps you be more sustainable, ensures you keep your herd numbers up, which is also important for us.
Well, and that's been our primary focus all through the pandemic and all through the drought, to make sure we maintain the basic cow herd.
Right.
You know, we haven't increased our cow numbers in 20-some years.
And it's maybe not part of that framework, but I think the other thing we really have to look at too is the labor issue. Certainly with the processing plants, and we've certainly, you and I have seen with Cargill, you know, strike impending. It looks like they've got an agreement where you can all breathe a sigh of relief, but that doesn't necessarily solve the labor issue we have throughout agriculture, but certainly in the processing side, and we have to do some work on that.
Nope. Well, I think do you have anything else to add? I think I'm out of questions. I'm not sure.
Well, you know, maybe I should ask you questions and then we can have a second podcast.
Yeah.
No, honestly,
boss might not like me.
No, I guess not. It's great to have you. I really appreciate it, and certainly it's always a pleasure to work with the Canadian Cattlemen's Association.
Well, we truly are part of the solution. We set our goals, and the government's going to come out with goals, and we feel that we need to be part of the process of Canada setting their goals.
Right.
And when it comes to the beef industry.
Yeah, like I said, there's incredible potential there, and we certainly know that, not only domestically, but as you said, with international trade markets. And I think as we go through what we've learned in the pandemic, we have to understand that we need to be more self-sustaining when it comes to processing, labor, regulatory regime, but we also have a role in feeding the world, and food security is a huge issue coming out of the pandemic. So we need to ensure we rely on our most trusted trading partners, strengthen those relationships, but then build on them, and that's something we need to do.
It's not a role, it's an obligation.
Right.
You know, what the UN came out with a few years ago, Canada will be one of the few countries in the world by 20-something that is capable of producing more food than they can consume. So we need governments to invest in the science and then allow us to use the science so we can live up to our obligations.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a big part of, in your last question too, is on that framework, is what kind of investments are there for science and innovation and technology. Again, we do it better than anyone else in the world. Never means that we can't do it better. So we've always been able to grow more on less. I think agriculture has reduced its carbon footprint over the last decades for sure.
Yeah.
And we can always do better. And let's be the world leader on that.
What are we? Less than half of the world average in greenhouse gases in the beef industry, and our goal is to reduce by another 30%.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a stretch, but if we're allowed to use the science, we can get it done.
Well, and that's where this relationship with Minister Guy Bowen Environment comes in. His comments in the past have been that the livestock industry has more greenhouse gas emissions than transportation globally, which we know is complete bunk. But that is the mentality of this minister that's in that role, and we need to do a much better job of educating him on what actually happens in modern Canadian agriculture.
Dad, and this would be 40 years ago, something came up on the news, 6 o'clock news, and Dad says he just got mad again or what it was. But he said, I don't understand it. Whatever happens in the world, somebody somewhere will figure out a way to blame it on a cow. And that's still happening.
Yeah.
So we're here to defend our livelihood and defend the environment, and that's...
Yeah. And tell your story, the true story.
Yeah.
Not what an eco-activist perceives to be the truth, or is promoting as the truth when we know that's not fact.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is that you are you are protecting a very pristine and rare ecosystem, which is our grasslands, feeding the world, but doing that in a very sustainable, environmentally friendly way.
We do it better than anybody else in the world.
100%.
And we need our governments to realize that and stand behind us.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.